So, welcome back everyone for the final part of this two-day Climate Propaganda's congregation. It's my pleasure to introduce the part of our program that will address collectivist ecologies, meaning ecosystems, forms of life, forms of living that fundamentally reject predation, property and predation, not just in the present, but across deep time. And the first of two interventions comes from a person who I met 21 years ago on a crossing in Boston when I was much younger and the person in question was much younger as well. And the person in question is Vincent W.J. van Gerven Oei, then indeed a young philosopher. And I was, I would say, blessed as an artist to have been able to work across this long period of time on this close proximity of philosophy, theoretical rigor, and artistic imagination. So it's someone who has very much shaped my own practice as well. Vincent W.J. van Gerven Oei, co-founder of the field of Proletgeology, the study of proletarian other than human life forms across deep time. I act in this context as a paleo artist, meaning as an artist who paints these figures that are here placed around us, landscape of deep time, connecting them to our recent, present and present. Vincent is also a publisher, philologist, engages with both human and non-human semiotics, director of scholar and queer-led open access publishing house Punctum Books, and founder and CEO of open source software company VOF Open Metadata. Please welcome with me Vincent W.J. van Gerven Oei.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here with us, and thank you, Jonas, Maria, and the team of Studio Jonas Staal and Buck for bringing us here all together in this invigorating and nourishing weekend. I would like to start by introducing you to another more than human comrade behind me. Behold, Hoag's object. A ring galaxy with a diameter of 100,000 light years, 600 million light years away. It was photographed by the Hubble Space Telescope in July 2001, and the photons of this galaxy left their stars at the same time as the Dickinsonia, right here, Swartpuntia over there, Carnia, where are you? Here. Ernietta, over there on the left. And Sprigina, over there, and many other comrades were roaming the earth. And when we turn our eye to the night sky and look to the constellation of serpents, our retina interacts directly with particles of that same age, 600 million years ago. We humans can sense the ediacaran even today. We have heard a lot about art, about activism, about politics today, these days. And today I would like to intervene on behalf of science. During a short-lived chapter in the history of the Proletgeology movement, Alexander Bogdanov developed the curriculum for a university based on a new proletarian science. According to Bogdanov, science developed under capitalism for a university under capitalism only served capitalist modes of production, and the new science of the proletariat would have to be, quote, capable of leading its forces to struggle for, attain, and implement its social ideals. In the aftermath of the Russian Revolution, Bogdanov developed the curriculum for the Karl Liebknecht University, a 3-year program that started with physics, mathematics, chemistry, and physiology, then moved on to the social sciences in the second year, and ended with a course on what Jody Dean yesterday already referred to as the immortal science, dialectical materialism. Even though the university and its innovative curriculum only lasted a few months, it shows Bogdanov's deep understanding of how seemingly neutral scientific fields such as geology form the basis methodologically and ideologically for fields such as political economy and dialectical materialism. It is in Bogdanov's spirit that I will introduce today to you the science of Proletgeology. As it has become commonplace to refer to our present geological time as the Anthropocene, an increasing number of critiques have emerged of the way in which such a denomination projects the universalizing gesture of Enlightenment values onto our geosphere. Of humanity harmoniously united in capitalist ecocidal destruction, glossing over the class struggle, imperialism, colonialism, speciesism, and racism that have shaped the current climate catastrophe. As Catherine Yusel states, quote, "The Anthropocene was conceived as a political geology, and that is its practice. And besides, historically, when was geology anything but political in its narratives about the world, origins, and the weaponization of extraction as a motivation and mode of dispossession? Indeed, geology has since the 19th century furnished political economy with key metaphors for the justification of capitalism's arch-predatory nature and naturalness. The Anthropocene should only be seen as the most recent offspring in this lineage of geo-revisionist propaganda." In the second volume of his Principles of Geology, 19th century geologist Charles Lyell examines a set of questions that have long been present in the study of nature, namely whether species are of a permanent or transitory nature, subject to infinite modification. Is it possible for species to go extinct, or conversely, to emerge from nature? For Lyell, this question takes on a specific urgency from the perspective of geology, since the timescales on which it operates destabilize the constancy the biologist may take for granted in their observations of the natural world. Furthermore, the geological record, in the form of fossils showing species no longer in existence, provides evidence for the existence of radical diversity despite the continuity suggested by our everyday experience. Discussing the reasons why certain species develop toward so-called perfection while, quote, repressing the advance of others, Lyell proposes, quote, a force of external circumstances which causes such wide chasms in the regular series of animated beings. He approvingly cites the botanist Augustin de Candolle, who arrives to a similar conclusion, and I quote again, "All the plants of a given country are at war with one another, in a continual strife." This strife became the structure of Lyell's geological time. A few decades earlier, economist and cleric Thomas Malthus had formulated in an essay on the principle of population his doctrine that increased welfare would lead to a larger population growth, which in turn would cancel out any increase in welfare. As he wrote, "A man who is born into a world already possessed, if he cannot get subsistence from his parents, on whom he has a just demand, and if the society do not want his labor, he has no claim or right to the smallest portion of food, and in fact has no benefits to be where he is." We see here the first articulation of what would later become known as social Darwinism, but it is already at the core of the theory that biologist Charles Darwin would identify as his own. Both the notions of nature's war and the Malthusian doctrine are integrated by Darwin in his work, The Origin of Species, where he defines the so-called struggle for life as the driving force behind the natural selection among the variety of species, as well as the main cause of the continued flourishing of such variation. And although related to man's power of selection, this struggle for existence in the form of natural selection is said to be, quote, a power incessantly ready for action and is as immeasurably superior to man's feeble efforts as the works of nature are to those of art. Even though Darwin claims that he uses the term struggle for existence in a large and metaphorical sense, he also identifies it with a very real doctrine of Malthus applied with manifold force to the whole animal and vegetable kingdoms. The Darwinian metaphor of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life, as he calls it, was in turn taken up by the philosopher Herbert Spencer. In Spencer's Principles of Biology, which is part of his synthetic philosophy project that incorporated much of the thought of Lyell, Malthus, and Darwin, among others, he expressed natural selection, quote, in mechanical terms, by means of the now infamous term, the survival of the fittest. He then transplanted this phrase used to describe empirical population data to the realm of political economy, where it turned into an ethical principle that is best captured in the popular slogan, greed is good. According to Spencer, the process of the survival of the fittest was on a straight theological path to a state of societal perfection, which must be undergone and the sufferings must be endured. No power on earth, no cunningly devised laws of statesmen, no world-rectifying schemes of the humane, no communist panaceas, no reforms that man ever did broach or will ever broach can diminish them one jot. Darwin incorporated Spencer's phrase in later editions of The Origins of Species, and therefore irreversibly marked his inquiry into nature as a political project. Spencer's coinage thus became the ubiquitous currency of US capitalist self-justification, a biological apology for laissez-faire. This survival itself became the fabric of capitalist temporality, a temporality of gradual evolution, supposedly etched into the successive layers of Earth's mantle. Yet Darwin's theory of evolution, driven as it was by this struggle for existence that at the same time had become the core of capitalist social theory, remained and remains largely unsupported by the geological record. Darwin himself was aware of what he called this imperfection, and he asks, why then is not every geological formation and every stratum full of intermediate links? This objection remained current even after the development of the neo-Darwinist synthetic theory, which married Darwin's natural selection with genetics and entrenched its ideological presuppositions on a subcellular level. The glaring lack of paleobiological evidence for this so-called war of nature, that is, any evidence that supports the metaphorical naturalness of constant violent competition advocated by capitalism as the engine of civilizational advancement, motivated Niles Eldredge and Stephen Jay Gould to advance an alternative evolutionary theory of what they call punctuated equilibria. Namely, most species exist within a general stasis, with evolutionary changes happening suddenly over short periods of time. As we will see below, Eldredge and Gould's radically different conceptualization of geological time has far-reaching theoretical implications. Another reaction against neo-Darwinism was formulated in the same period by Lynn Margulis, the geneticist and co-originator of the Gaia hypothesis, who argued for forms of endosymbiosis, organisms living in the bodies or cells of others, as an important impetus behind the development of species. Nevertheless, at the time, paleobiologists by and large continue to maintain that Darwin's theory, however modified or amended, had a general applicability to developmental species in the distant past. This view became largely untenable with the discovery of the Ediacaran, an era that spent 94 million years up to the beginning of the Cambrian so-called evil empire of carnophagy, I love this term. 500, it's not mine, this is by Dorian Sagan. 551 million years ago. In this period, a wide variety of soft-bodied metazoa, here beautifully surrounding us, inhabited the ocean floors, feeding on the microbial mats, it sounds delicious, feeding on the microbial mats that covered them rather than on each other. When the first Ediacaran fossils of a modest organism named Ospidella terranovica were found in the late 19th century, they were initially dismissed as non-organic in nature. Nevertheless, more encounters with these metazoa followed, providing further faint traces of the earliest, quote, large and architecturally complex organisms in Earth history. In his seminal work, The Dawn of Animal Life, which synthesizes his work on the Ediacaran, Martin Glessner concludes, I quote, "We did not find the course of evolution of the metazoa to be a unidirectional climb up the ladder of life from protozoa to man. The fossil record tells of different sequences of events. As a measure of the resistance in the geological community against this new era and the implications its metazoa had for paleobiological theory, is the fact that only in 2003 the Ediacaran was accepted in a series of votes by the International Geological Commission on Stratigraphy Working Group on the terminal Proterozoic period. You got to be part of that. Talking about commission work, right? Previously. Ever since, the Ediacaran has provided immense inspiration for those scientists trying to dislodge the capitalo-Darwinist hegemony. In his foreword to The Garden of Ediacara, science writer Dorian Sagan speaks of a, quote, largely vegetative existence predating predation, of planimals engaged in lifestyle of autotrophic sunbathing. We're not done. The true ancestors of a Homo photosyntheticus to come, a concept that he later developed with his mother, Lynn Margulis. The idea of such autotrophic post-humanity modeled on para-predatory modes of being was actually already pioneered in the earliest 20th century by the Russian geochemist Vladimir Vernadsky, who incidentally also invented the word biosphere. Producing nutrients from sunlight by means of photosynthesis would turn the human, according to Vernadsky, from, quote, a social heterotrophic being into an autotroph. And this would put an end to human predation. And I quote, "The repercussion of this phenomenon within the biosphere would be immense. It is clear that it would be the culmination of a long paleontological evolution, which would represent not an action of the free will of humanity, but a manifestation of a natural process. By this achievement, human understanding would produce not only a great social effect, but a great geological phenomenon." And so he's talking here about humans being capable of photosynthesis. From a Vernadskian perspective, it is evident why the discovery of the Ediacaran propels Sagan and Margulis to imagine an alternative genealogy stretching from pre-predatory metazoa to post-human vertebrates with chloroplastic endosymbionts capable of photosynthesis, bypassing the entire post-Ediacaran predatory terror lasting from the earliest trilobites to anthropocenic megaheterotrophs like Amazon. At the same time, both the stability of Ediacaran existence for 94 million years, which is lengthy, and the radical explosion of rapid diversification of different life forms at the onset of the subsequent Cambrian period seriously undermine the geo-revisionist metaphors that geology and evolutionary biology had contributed to the allegorical imagination of capitalism. This is particularly clear in an offhanded remark by McAnamin when he asks, "I don't think that there is anything wrong with considering the applications of the Garden of Ediacara in a wider sense. Are there fruitful analogies here for the conduct of, say, foreign policy? Do socialism and capitalism have fundamentally an ecological basis? Rather than taking McManaman's reductive materialist musing at face value, we should read this as a confirmation that geology for centuries has furnished political economy with metaphorical scaffolding, while in turn re-ingesting its concepts, as in the case of the Anthropocene. Instead, the Ediacaran confirms something far more far-reaching, as foreshadowed in Eldridge and Gould's punctuated equilibria, namely a radical revaluation of timescales in general. It shows us the vital importance of conceptions of non-linear deep time in combating capitalist temporalities of gradual evolution driven by singular principles. Developing Eldridge and Gould's idea and linking it to Sigrid Zielinski's media-archaeological idea of deep time, media theorist Jussi Parikka states that, quote, Earth times and geological durations become a theoretical strategy of resistance against the linear progress myths that impose a limited context for understanding technological change. Put otherwise, despite the extractivist logics that started with coal and now exhume the most minute quantities of rare earth minerals in giant terraforming reorganization of atoms at the age of the universe, the most precious resource from Earth's interior is allegory. It is the task of Proletgeology to interrogate these modes in which language is predicated upon predation. The idea of deep time permeates several other temporal regimes that unsettle capitalist, evolutionist, and fundamentally conservative temporalities. One example, I'll give a few examples. One example is philosopher Quentin Meillassoux' idea of the archfossil, which indicating the existence of an ancestral reality or event that is anterior to the emergence of the human species. For Meillassoux, the fact that archfossils, such as radiation from isotopes used to determine the absolute age of geological formations, or in fact the photons radiating from Hooke's objects, the whole idea that these actually things make sense, despite their givenness from far before human consciousness, pries apart the doublet of subjectivity and objectivity that has reigned supreme since the critical turn of Kant's philosophy and has determined the philosophical framework which gave birth to capitalism in the first place. Another example, much closer to the Australian sites whence the Ediacaran derives its name, is the Aboriginal idea of yukurpa, of dreaming. The dreaming provides a home to ancestral spirits in a temporality untethered from linear time, a form of ancestrality that is independent from subjective observation. Both the dreaming and Meillassoux' archfossils share a temporality of non-linear deep time, where the Ediacarans and the photons from Hooke's object also endure. They attune us to a chronoproletariat of moments. It is this attunement to solidarities across geotemporalities, be they revolutionary eruptions of truth, ancestral knowledge, or the potential of species to shape different ways of collective habitation, not predicated on predatory lines of evolutionary flight, that Proletgeology ventures to engage. Thank you.